Hi. I feel it's after lunch. I could take a nap right now, but I have another client soon. So let's look at day 76. Daily Spark question says, what patterns repeat regardless of intention? What patterns repeat regardless of intention? It's like the story of my life. Like, oh, that old thing coming back around, even though my intention was like, thought we dealt with that, thought we inquired into it, thought we healed it, whatever. It's like, oh, you're back. Oh. Um, so I know this is more about getting specific, like what patterns repeat regardless of my like intention about them. Um, I was thinking about that this morning actually, about how, and I've said this before, like phases I go through with the way I feel is usually like a 2 to 3 week cycle. And I know, so it's like, it works like clockwork where I know how I'm feeling, and I know if I'm getting close to that 2 or 3 week mark, it's about ready to shift. And so I don't worry too much about that anymore. I'm like, this pattern of, even the pattern of my patterns, like the pattern that says you go through things in 2 to 3 week cycles, more toward like the 3 week mark. So there will be like, and it goes with like everything. I swear there's nothing that's left out of this. And so I know, I had a funny thought that I'm like, oh, don't say that, but I'm going to say it. Who cares? Even when I had menstrual cycles, they were 21 days. They were 3 weeks, not the typical, if there's a typical, but I think 4 weeks is more common. Like the 28 days, mine were like clockwork 21 days. And so I'm like, maybe that's just my natural cycle, is like a 3 week period of whatever I'm going through. And it could be like ultra productivity, even though I don't like that word, but it's like, oh, I'm driven, I'm motivated, I'm getting shit done that's been on my list for a while, or it could be like, oh, I'm cocooning. I feel like a need for like some deep focused self-care time, meditation, going inward. So that maybe those are the big umbrellas, is like cycles of inward and cycles of outward. And that, I think of that too. This is taking me in some fun places. I think of that with the cycles of the body and how the natural rhythms are gathering and expanding. These, like the fluids in the body, you can feel them. Like I was talking about our craniosacral rhythm and other fluid kind of rhythms in the body. You can feel them like literally under your hands. You'll feel like when you attune to like feeling these things, you'll feel the gathering and the spreading out, like expanding of the fluids in our body, like the fascia. It's like, it's wild that's just a natural, it's like everything has a pulse, not just the heart, not just the breath, like contraction, expansion, like literally every part of us has this like pulsing sensation to it, rhythm. And it's, to me, it's fascinating because it just like everything's always in motion in that way. Even the universe, like anything on a long enough time scale is going to have that pulsing. So it's like, how they say like our universe, and that's what happens with stars, not just our universe, but at a star level, like there's a mass explosion, like an expansion. And then after billion, I don't know how many years, I'm not a scientist, damn it. Then everything contracts back in, and then the star implodes or goes supernova, I guess. I don't know. So like the way the solar, like not the solar system, the whole universe works, like with these star systems, is like expansion and then contraction, and it blows up again, and then it implodes and it blows up again. And I just think that's endlessly fascinating. And they say even our own galaxy is like, or let's say the whole universe has this, like, everything's growing. The universe is constantly expanding, right? I'm sure you've heard that. It's not new news. It's like when you look, apparently, if you are an astronomer or physicist, you look out there and you see everything is moving farther and farther apart. Well, that doesn't last forever, so they say. There will be a point, and I feel like they said, like, in some parts of the universe it's already happening, but I don't know, maybe I got that wrong. But at some point things will stop moving farther apart, and then they'll start coming back. And that's what's curious to me, is on what time scale are we on? Because here we are at what they kind of estimate about 13.5 billion years. I didn't know we were going to go to the origins of the universe in this question, but let's say 13.5 billion years. I think that's just for our own, is that the whole universe? That sounds right. I think so. And so it's like, and we're still expanding. So on what time scale, like, when will it be that everything contracts back to that pinpoint, or like that singularity from which we all exploded, called the Big Bang? And even that's being sort of like questioned in scientific circles, but anyway, that's a theory. So this whole, like, to me, that pattern of, oh, by the way, speaking of things fitting on the head of a pin, this is fascinating since we're talking about space. There's a physicist I heard talking about, how, like, when you look at an atom, like, we're talking really tiny things, like, we're getting into the quantum kind of realm. So, like, you look at an atom and it's mostly space. Like, the amount of space between the proton and an electron in an atom is, like, so big. And I forget what they relate it to in our macro world here. It's just, like, so far away. And so it's like, yeah, it's like everything's just made of, like, emptiness. Everything's empty. Isn't that crazy? So anyway, that's not where I was going, but just, like, recognizing the sheer amount of emptiness in every single atom. And we have all of this in our body. We're made of all of that emptiness. And she said, if you were to remove all the space between the proton and the electrons in all of our atoms, like, get rid of all the space between the protons and electrons, and through every atom in our whole body, what's left of our body would fit on the head of a pin. She said needle, but head of a pin sounds better. So it's like, what? So when you really think about how much space is in, isn't that crazy? Fascinating. So anyway, we are, like, if everything is just contracting and expanding, there's, like, first of all, there's no point where, like, everything is still, like 100% not moving. Like, literally everything is constantly moving, even though at the macro level here, I'm like, that chair is not moving. That is just sitting there. But inside, it's all like, and so anyway, back on track here. These patterns that repeat, to me, I feel like my biggest patterns are about that contracting and expansion, going inward and then going outward. And that plays out in a lot of ways. Like I said, sometimes it's the cocooning self-care going inward. And then it's like going into like action and doing mode and getting shit done mode. And then other times it's like being alone just because I love alone time. And other times it's like, hey, I want to connect with everybody. Where is everybody? You know, like I came out of my hole, will you come out of your holes? And so there's like, to me, those are like the big buckets of the patterns that I go through. And everything sort of fits in there. So I don't even feel like it's worth talking about any other specific patterns, because to me it's more fascinating just sort of to see things in that way from like zoomed out. I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Then I can like bucket everything into contraction and expansion and make sense of my own patterns without having to identify with them. Like when I want to go inward and be like, I don't want to do anything. And I don't have to feel any one way about it, because our culture kind of makes us feel bad about wanting to cocoon. It doesn't as much anymore, but it's still a thing. And so it's like, no, I think it's natural. It's unnatural if you didn't have a pattern, right? It'd be unnatural if you were all one way all the time. Ew, boring. Go get checked out. Something's wrong. Like the universe even says, like, no, you got to be constantly moving and shifting and changing form. Like energy doesn't, it just is constantly in motion, changing form. So I think that's why a lot of us, maybe I'll just speak for myself, feel maybe it's natural to feel sort of like at some point when you feel like you're not changing, like you're not growing, you're not shifting, like you feel stagnant. Like that word even is like, ooh, I don't want that. Like it's just like this thing built into us that says, no, we are bodies in motion. So when I get into a pattern, like I said, there's 3-week cycles. Toward the end, like at the beginning of the cycle, like that's the transition point. And then somewhere in the middle, I'm like, oh, yeah, we've entered a 3-week period of this. So let's hunker down, now that I'm used to it. And just knowing like this too shall pass, whatever it is. And then by the end of it, just on the brink of like, can we be done already? And then the next day I wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, we're done. Nothing happened, but yeah, we've moved out of that. So that's how it works for me. I'm really curious about other people, because I feel like a lot of us are very phasey with things, but do you have like a tried and true, is that what this phrase, like predictable kind of length of time you go through these patterns? Like, do you have a pattern of patterns like we've been talking about? Yeah, let me know.